Welcome to the Balancing Busy podcast. This is episode 16. Today I am interviewing Shantae Grant, and I have been so excited for this specific interview because I'd never met Shantae. I couldn't wait to meet her, and it's not every day that you get to talk to someone who geeks out about the exact same thing that you geek out. So Shantae is also someone who loves talking about organization, being more productive, increasing your intentionality, being more purpose-driven, living every single day, as she would say, as your best day. So this interview, we get into and talk about all of these things. And I have to tell you, I was not expecting to see how much she is juggling. We all have seasons, and she is in a season where she is juggling a ton, and yet she's still doing it, being intentional and purpose-driven. It is so beautiful. There is so much to learn from her. So let's jump in and start getting the goodness. Okay, we have Shantae Grant here with me. I am so excited. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for asking.
Oh, my honor. I am thrilled. I know we talked about this in pre, but there are not many people who geek out over like productivity and being intentional and systems and organization and just being present. I don't get to talk to many people who love this as much as I do. So I am thrilled. Okay, so I really want to jump in and just hear your story. Will you share with us and tell me, how did intentional living really become your calling?
That's a great question. I'll say I started my career off as an attorney in business litigation a long time ago, 2008, whenever that was. And so a little thing about me is I have been very intentional my entire life. When I think about it, I knew that I wanted to go to law school. Every single thing I wanted to accomplish and achieve in law school, I did that. I knew I wanted to clerk for a judge. I did that. I knew I wanted to then go to a firm. I did that. And then we hit a point where I had my daughter in 2014, and what I wanted started to feel differently. It didn't match up with how I want to feel. Reality didn't feel like the vision I had in my head. And I think one of the first places where I got to exercise intention in a place of discomfort, because, up until that point in my life, I'd been a student, then be an employee. But adding on another layer of being responsible for another person really made me think about intentionality a lot more. And so I made the decision to leave the practice of law because it was no longer aligned with what I wanted, who I wanted to be. And it wasn't just about being in a firm, but just the whole practice in general. And so I left in 2015 and have been doing my own thing ever since. Actually, this month will be 7 years, which after this month, I will have been a non-practicing lawyer than an actual acting lawyer. So for me, I think it's just having my whole life knowing what I wanted, but maybe later in life understanding how that aligned with who I am and what season of life I am, and which is how I define intentionality. I define being intentional as being clear on who you are, what you want, while honoring the season of life that you're in. And that's what I teach.
I love that. So what were the days looking like? Like, as you came to that moment where you're like, this doesn't align. What were your big red flags that you were seeing that helped you to recognize that?
Oh, there was one in particular incident that me as a human was just completely and utterly ignored. We were traveling for a family trip. We had a big work thing coming up. And because I knew that I was going to be traveling for my niece's graduation out of state with my family, I got everything in early and said, please remember, I am gone this weekend. I ended up missing my coworker's wedding because we planned to leave after her wedding because I was working because it was disregarded. Oh, last minute Friday night, sending things to do, knowing at that point, I'm no longer, pretend I'm not even here. So I missed her wedding. Then while traveling, I'm under a blanket trying to take calls. In the morning at my sister-in-law's house, I'm up in the quiet taking calls. And I remember that drive back from Orlando, looking at my husband and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And I don't care if I have a job lined up or not, but I refuse to live this way. That was really the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and understanding that I wasn't valued as a human. I wasn't seen as a human, and no one was listening to me. And one of them, I'm too smart. I'm too important to be treated that way. And there's no job on the planet, or person for that matter, who has permission to do that. And so I decided I was going to leave. That was, I guess, the summer, because that was after graduation. And I left in September of that year.
That is so good. Okay, so Shantae, I feel like someone might look at you and go, okay, well, you're too smart. You're too important because you are a lawyer. Like, girl, you're smart. You're right. So what do you say maybe to the mama who isn't feeling that? She isn't believing her value, her worthiness.
Yeah, you were born with it. Let me just be clear. I'm worthy because I was born with it, not because of a degree that I hold or a job that I worked or a zip code that I live in. Because I was born. When I was born, I had all the points. This is what I always tell people. You were born with all the points. I know this world will make you think you get more points when you are married, when you graduate, when you get this job title, when you get this car or house or live in this area. Those aren't things that give you points. Those are maybe a part of your story. But that's not where your value comes from. Your value comes from you. You're human. You are here. You were born with every single thing. You're worthy as you are. And so you're just as smart and important, but you have to be able to see that and own that. And sometimes I always tell people you have to believe it before you believe it. You know, when I left, I did not know fully what that was going to look like, but I knew that I was willing to bet on myself, because if there's anything in this whole wide world I can bet on every time, it's going to be me. And you have to have that resolve. And I understand that I was born with some of that, and some people have to learn it, but it's possible. I say this at the end of my podcast, you have everything you need to have everything you want. You just have to be willing to tap into it. And where people stop are in conversations like that with themselves, saying, but I'm not. The only person saying that right now is you. And if you keep telling yourself this story, you're going to believe it. So maybe change your words, change your environment, change your scene, change something if you want to change something.
Yes. One of the things that I found, I bet you've heard this a lot too, is these women who, well, anyone who constantly say, who am I to? Who am I to go after their dream, to do the next thing? And I want to like do that, like kind of loving shake them and be like, who are you not to? What on earth? What makes you think you have to wait for someone else to give you permission? You are the only person you need permission from. And I agree. I felt that throughout my life too. Like I believe I'm a great bet. I believe I am a great investment. Like I know how hard I'll work. I know my resolve. I know that no matter how many times I fall down, I will get back up. And I'm okay with the falling down. I know that's part of the process, but I will get back up. And my story is a little bit different, where I mean, it sounds like you did very good in school. Okay, let's just be honest. You were obviously top of your class and doing pretty dang good if you were going into law school. I'm dyslexic. I have ADHD. And I was told my whole life that I wasn't smart, that I wasn't good enough to go to college, that I better find somebody rich because I have expensive taste. No one ever imagined or believed, like, I know. And no one ever said to me, like, you can do this yourself. And so I had to like dig in and find that, and just, you know, we're each going to have our motivation. And let's be honest, probably my 20-something motivation was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And eventually I grew from that. I grew out of that. But we all have to find that thing that's going to drive us and push us. And maybe someone's looking at their life and they're like, there isn't proof that I can do this. And they're fearful of that. I had no proof that I could do the things that I wanted to do, except for this just belief, this maybe not even well-founded belief that like, but you know what? I'm going to, and I'm okay falling down and getting up and falling down and getting up. I think that's part of the process.
Absolutely.
I try to say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, you have a 100% track record that things work out. So far, you're still here. You showed up again 100% of the time. Like, even if it didn't work out the way you thought it would, it's still working out. You have 100% track record of like, it's going to be okay. So just keep showing up, keep trying. It's coming. Okay. So what does a typical day look like for you?
I can tell you today, my days are not typical. Well, in a sense. So I'll give you high level and then granular. Granular, like today, for instance, it's Monday. On Mondays, I go to Pilates. So I dropped my children off to school this morning. And went to Pilates class, came back to my office, and I've been doing some work. I usually don't work on Mondays, actually, but I'm in a season now through next May where I am in a business program. So I have school 4 days a week, and that's a lot on top of homework. That's just like when we're actively on calls in class. So because of that, Monday and Fridays, I now have open for schoolwork. So I did some of that, talked to my team. I just came back from traveling last week. So we were just going over my receipts and filling out things for reimbursements. Tonight I have class at 4. I also have another business call tonight at 7:45. So I will pick my children up. I should say that. So I pick my children up from school at around 2:30. We go home. So today is school day. So I have a box that I have gotten from them that is like school day toys, which means when I am in class, it's the only time they get to play with these things because it makes it special and it keeps them active while I am in class without screens. And so we will do that. They will have an after school snack, and then I will be in class from 4 to 6. Then we'll have dinner, get them ready for bed. We'll have kind of end of night time. And usually I'd never hardly ever have a call this late, but I have a call tonight at 7:45 with a business advisor. And so that's my day. But basically the typical day, if we're going to say typical now, we'll go high level, is movement, wake up, quiet time to myself, movement. So today that looked like exactly my movement was Pilates. It looks like getting my children to school, working, picking them up, some type of after school activity for us together. Or if I have class, they're doing something, I do that, bedtime. And then I end my night in quiet again. So with my best today guide. So that's my usual day, Monday through Friday anyway.
Oh, okay. So you are doing a lot. Like, I did not expect you to be like, and I'm throwing school in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge amount. And I love hearing other people's days. I love just getting to like get into the nitty gritty and be like, okay, but what does it actually look like for you? And I love that movement, that quiet time are part of your day. Those are part of mine every day too. It's, my morning starts with my quiet time, moves into movement, and I shift it about every 12 weeks so I don't get too bored and keep going. And then my days change. Typically for me, I also do not work on Mondays normally. I actually call Mondays Ugly Monday, because it's my get it done. Like the weekend has happened. I really don't do any kind of things that, are the need to do things on weekends a lot of times. And so Monday, I'm getting back in and getting all the things done. It's the day where I don't want anyone to knock on my door, show up, don't surprise me. This is not the day to see humans. I just want to get things done. And then Fridays are usually a partial or a no work day as well. So I love that we line up. Now, what do you say to the person who's like, I would love to exercise. I know I should. I know it would help me, but I can't figure out how to fit one more thing into my calendar.
Yeah, someone just asked me yesterday, actually, how, saying that, how do I make planning not feel like another thing to do? And that sounds similar. Like if you're thinking, how do I make exercise not another thing to do? For me, that's almost like I were to ask you, like, I don't have time to breathe. I don't have time to love. I don't have time. It's like, that is how essential movement is. You don't have to do the movement that I do. You don't have to go on a Peloton bike. You don't have to go to Pilates. You can go for a walk. You can stretch. You can do whatever it is that you enjoy. You can row. Literally, there are so many different ways to move our bodies. That for me is one, I want to be healthy. I want to be able to run around and really I was thinking about this last week. I was in San Francisco, and if you've ever been in San Francisco, the hills are atrocious. They're like just straight up. You might as well just be walking straight up. And as I was actually just walking and just thinking on the plane, picking up my suitcase, which is always going to be heavy, these things, I was literally thinking to myself, I am so grateful. My body can do the things I need to function. I can pick up a heavy suitcase and put it overhead. I can pick up this bag and get it back. I can walk 1.5 miles uphill in San Francisco. Like, that's why I move my body, because I want to be able to do the things I want to do in life and be able to have the functionality to do that. Like, I was healthy enough to just do the things like lift a suitcase. And so it's not about, oh, I should exercise because I want to fit into this thing. Just get the size that fits you. That's not the issue, at least not for me. It's not about I should do it because people on Instagram said that's what I should do. It's because it's literally what your body needs to function. You function better, you move better, you feel better, you think better, you emote better, you relate to other humans better when you take care of your body. And so knowing that, now I want you to come back and ask me, how do I make time for that? Because I'm going to ask you, how do you not make time for the thing that literally keeps you alive and healthy and well, and it's good for your body and your mind. It's, for me, it's more about my mental health than my physical when I think about exercise. And when I think about my physical health, I think about making sure I'm sleeping and drinking my water. But really, exercise movement really does for me. It helps me clear my mind. It's a place where I can see my strength. I can see, wow, I used to be able to do this amount of weight. Now I can do this, or I couldn't do that. And I remember when I struggled with this, and now look at me doing this thing. And I take that into the real world. Like, oh, this thing in real life is really hard. But guess what? I remember when I did that hard thing when I was exercising, I couldn't do that. Then I couldn't do it this time. So when I meet a challenge that I feel like I can't do, my brain says, remember, we couldn't do a V-up, 6 months postpartum. Now you're killing those things, So for me, there's just so many benefits that are endless that if you really think about it, when you say it out loud, how do I not make time for this? You will hear how absurd that is. And you will give yourself the space to understand that I'm worth, and I actually have this on, it says, I'm worth the effort. I am worth the effort it takes to make time to do what's important, because I can guarantee you, if you know what Bachelor it is, if you've streamed something, you have time. If you have a phone that doesn't flip open that you use, you have time to move your body.
Oh, I so agree. And I want to touch on one thing, because I think the same kind of transition for me, which was I stopped making exercise about a vanity metric, not about my size, not about what the scale said. That wasn't why I was doing it. As long as that had been why, I had never been able to stay consistent. Never. I would go on, off, on, off. When it changed for me, so I currently have a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old. My world is rocking right now because I have a senior. Like my world next year, she goes off and I am not ready. And I have a lot of friends who have been having a lot of fun teasing me, being like, do you realize in 10 years you could be a grandma? And I'm like, stop it. Stop it now. You are not helping. But that has stuck in my mind. And I exercise for the vibrance, for the vitality, because I want to have energy, and I do it for that mental. Like, I need this to just give me that outlet to just let it all go, blow off the steam. And I have this picture, like I picture myself as a grandma running through Disneyland. That's what I envision. And I'm like, I want to be able to not only keep up with them, they're going to have to try to keep up with me. I am going to be like, come on guys, we got to get to the next ride. That is what I vision.
I love that.
And I think, another thing that just helps me is when you start understanding the health connections attached to exercise. I've really been studying a lot of research around weightlifting and what it does for our brains, for our minds, for helping us against degeneration. And so those become extra motivations. I'm not doing this for the me today that wants to fit into anything. Even though I will say, the other day I was going from the grocery store and I was holding all of the bags, in two hands. And I was like, look at me doing this, right?
Yeah.
I was feeling really good about that. But I'm doing it for future me. Like, these are the investments. I make this investment every day for future me, because I don't want future me to be like, really? You couldn't have just built these habits? So making that be my motivation, or I guess my why, has made the difference for me as well, of like, no longer, I don't drop off anymore. This is just what I do. It's who I am. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about balancing being an entrepreneur and a mom, because There's no way around it. It is hard. It is a beast trying to be present and intentional and that mom that you dream of being, and trying to build, scale, grow, improve, expand your company, which is also such a part of who we are. So how do you keep the balance? How do you manage both? What does it look like when you're doing great? And what do you notice when it doesn't feel so great? What are the things that are hurting your ability?
Yeah, great question. The first thing is I don't balance or try to, because that feels uncomfortable to me. What I do is I try to be very present wherever I am. And when I do that, that's when I see success. And when I don't, like you asked, that's one of the things that I can tell when I'm not. So what that means is, I'm not trying to divide my day and say, okay, I want to give 8 hours to work and 8 hours to parenting. That's balanced in my opinion, because that's like a nice even kill. There's some days where parenting gets 10, work gets 9, work gets 10, parenting gets 90, 90. Or clearly, and that's not even true because there are other things. There's being a friend. There's so many other components. So the first thing I do is I don't carry this weight of I am trying to be anything outside of what I am. And one of the things that helps with that is I live by the standard of I'm going to do my best in this day. My best today, which is why my company is called Best Today, may not look like my best yesterday. So I'm not going back and say, oh, yesterday I crushed it. I didn't yell. That was yesterday. I'm going to do my best today. And I think when you hold yourself and you rise to that standard of your best, then it doesn't leave room for guilt or shame. I don't experience either of those emotions. And I know that every day with the tools that I have, I am showing up as my best. And then when I get something wrong, meaning I decide I don't like the way I handled that, I can then say, what happened there? Which goes to the second part of your question. The days where I decide I'm going to work out later in the day. I can't do that because it's something about starting my day there. I can already see a difference. The days where I skip something that I need in my morning time, where there's a part of like quiet time, I can't do that because I don't now have that reservoir of peace to tap into when one child is scream crying, the other one is complaining, and I just want to tell all of them, get out of my house, right? So for me, it's making sure I'm doing the things that I know I need first. The second is understanding that there are seasons. Right now we're in a heavy work season because, like I said, I'm in school. So, I'm going to have these, I paint for my daughter and these blocks for my son to keep them occupied while I'm in class. I have no guilt about that. I don't feel any kind of way. I am doing something that in this season is necessary, and it'll be over in May of next year. They're going to live. I'm going to live. I'm going to be better for it. I'm going to be a better leader and business owner. And so there's a reason why I'm doing this. So another thing is I only do things that matter. It's really easy. It's really easy to be hard on yourself when you're doing a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't matter to you and you have no connection to your desires, your life that you want. That's one space to bring in a lot of that feeling of, oh, I kind of can't do it all, because you're trying to quote unquote balance things that shouldn't even be in your hands. So that's another thing. This schoolwork, this business program, one was very hard to get into. I was selected. It's fully funded and paid for on my behalf. So it's like, I'm going to show up well there. I want to show up well at work for my team. But then when I'm with my children, I'm going to show up well there as well. So, Saturday was their day. I had been out of town for work for the week. And then, so Saturday was our day. We spent the almost entire day together, and I don't really do much for work on the weekends anyway. So it's understanding that things are going to shift. And I think the best explanation I've ever heard is thinking about harmony, where if you listen to an orchestra, there's going to be times where the percussion gets the best parts and they're the loudest. There's going to be times when the strings are playing the loudest, and neither one is good or bad. It makes the music beautiful. And so I'm in a season where work is playing a little bit louder, and I'm okay with that because I made that choice. It doesn't make me a poor mom or whatever. I know a lot of people think that, and I just don't think that way because of the intention. I know why I'm doing this. This is going to allow me to do this other thing that really matters to me, because like you mentioned, in less than 18 years, they're not going to be here. And I don't want to say, oh, I'm going to wait and start my life then. No, I'll be able to build on things that I was building while they were here when they're gone, because it's just a season. So that's how I do it, is by keeping really clear on what matters and only giving my time to what matters and being present where I am. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm with them, I'm with them. And then when priorities clash, then that's the whole point of having priorities. If I'm at work working, but I get a phone call that my child is hurt or something is needed at school, guess what? Bye work. Hello, so that's how it works for me. And I just want to invite anyone who's a parent to please disengage from guilt and shame around having to make choices sometimes that doesn't put your family with the most amount of time, particularly if it's just for a season, which usually it is.
Absolutely. I agree so heartedly. Two things that I just feel like I want to just reiterate because they're so crucial. Number one is we could probably eliminate so many problems that people are feeling if they would just listen to this one thing. Shantae and Leah are telling you, be present. When you're there, just be there. Stop trying to be in two places at once. It doesn't work. 2% of the population can multitask. Guess what? You are probably not part of that. So stop trying. Like, if you are with the kids, if you are with the family, be all in. That means throw your phone to focus. Go put it in a drawer. Be there. And if you are working, be working. And of course, if that phone rings and it's the school, we shift immediately. But when we're there, be there. I truly believe it comes down to committing to be present where you are. And that would take care of so much of the angst that people feel. And then number two is this idea of seasons. Life comes in seasons. That is just the way it works. And when we acknowledge and recognize the seasons we're in, exactly what you said, the season you're in right now. And you're like, okay, for right now, this is what it looks like, but this is not forever. This is a season. I remember when I built my first course, which would have been 2012, the kids were really little. And I knew, like, for this season, I am going to be putting in long hours. It is going to be harder. I had my date that I'd given myself. I had my launch times. Like, I needed to get all this done. And I remember sitting them down and thinking about, they're invested in this too, because I'm going to be asking more of them. I'm going to be asking the oldest to help make the little one a sandwich. And I'm going to be asking them to, I need you to just wait, give mommy more time today. She's got to finish this up. And so I decided that I wanted them to be in on it and give them a bonus, right? Just like if we were in corporate and you reach your goals, you'd get a bonus. So I told them,
I love that.
I would be a lot more careful now because they have a lot more expensive taste. But I told them at that time, I was like, when mommy reaches this, when we launch, when this happens, and I explained to him why I was so excited, what I was trying to do, what this meant to me, what I believed we would be able to do as a family. And I said, so I need everybody's help. So I want you to decide what your bonus is going to be, what you can pick any toy you want. And this is going to be your bonus when we reach it. And so that was how my girls got their first American Girl dolls. That was their bonus. And then my son, it was, this big giant Lego set. And I've always, it was honestly kind of an idea I came up with on the fly. And I was thinking about, well, when you reach projections as a company, everybody gets rewarded. I'm gonna, and I could use it with them, right? Remember, we all get the bonus. We're all gonna get the bonus and keep them motivated. But it worked and it was amazing. And they had that buy-in. Anyways, it was really fun. Okay. So as we wrap up, and we've talked about being intentional, and obviously this is something like being present, being intentional. You and I are both, we really believe in this. What would be your final words to share with, like, I think that we can get into bad habits of distraction, and we live in a time where that is the goal, not ours personally, but people need to understand the goal of social media platforms, the goal of Apple or whatever, Android, whatever, the goal of other companies, it is to get your attention. It is to grab you. And they are working incredibly, incredibly hard, investing insane amounts of money to vie for our attention and grab it and hold on to it as long as they possibly can. Because the longer they hold us, the more money they make. So how how do we choose better and create new habits that are going to help us to be more intentional, more present?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to my definition of being intentional. It is being clear on who you are, what you want, while honoring the season of life you're in. That is going to become your boundary. Anything that's outside of it is a distraction. Any and everything outside of it is a distraction. And I'm confident in saying every person listening to this doesn't have time for it. Okay. There are better things you can be doing with any quote unquote free time that you have. So when you get clear, and the benefit of getting clear on who you are, what you want, and the season of life you're in, is it now helps to define what isn't in that bubble, in that triangle, that sphere. Social media usually is one of those things. And the thing, like you said, they're better at their job than you are at yours. They're better at keeping you on there than you are at, oh, I'm just going to look for 5 minutes. Oh, I'm just going to do, like, they're better at their job. Like, I need you to understand, they are really good. They know exactly what you want. They know that you were just thinking about a purple suitcase as you were walking down the street yesterday, and they're going to show you the video of it, someone using it, another alternative, a bag that matches it. And then they're going to, like, they know, right? So the thing is, so how do you now set boundaries to protect yourself and your time? So I think what I want everyone to take away is maybe something I need to do later today, tonight, is to write down what really matters in this season. And then understand when you're planning your day, which I do every day in my Best Today guide, I recommend please plan every day before it begins, right? When you're planning what you're going to do, because that helps you now be intentional and proactive, I want you to write down, like, okay, here are the things that I have. Now, cross out anything that does not align with what you just said was important, aligns with who you are, what you want in your season of life, and and the reason I have you do this is because over time you get better at it and it just starts to come naturally, and you start to weed out the distractions a lot easier. Distractions can be places where you go, people you communicate to and give your time and energy to. It's not just social media. That is a huge one, but there are distractions in your everyday life. There are people in your phone who are distractions, and they're also very good at that. And you keep giving them that space. So learning how to set those boundaries is really going to help you to create better habits. And that's a whole nother conversation, but that's one small step you can take, is really defining the boundary so you're aware of how much time you're giving to distractions every single day.
Yes. We talk about distractions, I feel like, as a culture a lot. And the big obvious are things like our phone, TV. Yes, those are huge distractions, and we need to acknowledge and look at those and see how we're doing and how we feel about our habits around those. But there are so many other forms of distractions. And one that I think often people don't recognize as a distraction is the things that you don't have a good system for, and therefore they are taking up way too much space. So for example, if someone frequently does not have a plan for dinner, every night they get done working and they're like, dang it, I don't know what to have made. That is a distraction that is showing up way more often than they're recognizing. So to sit down one time and say, okay, how do I fix this? What does this look like? Brain dump. What are the options where I could make a plan? I could make a system that would help this. Okay, well, I could sit down once a week and come up with a meal plan. Or maybe I purchase a meal plan kit, get them delivering dinner 3 times a week. Maybe I find someone who's going to cook. Maybe I look at my, the way that we've done a combo of all of those. But looking at what are these things that are taking up a lot of space in my brain, in my thoughts, that keep coming back and bothering me, and how do I put in a simple system that can alleviate that thing? So I think that's another way we can look at and think of distractions, and that's a little different. That's a little past. And because I like that you mentioned that. I like that you're like, yeah, these are the big ones, but there are others. And that's one that I think of.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I talk about in Right Now routine. A routine is kind of what I'm thinking you're describing, is you're looking at this thing and now you can decide once, And now you know every time this happens, this will happen. And it saved you so much time, not only time, but mental energy. That takes a lot of like, you're going to be tired. And a lot of people wonder why they're so tired. They're like, I really didn't do a lot. Your mind sometimes works harder than your body in the day. And that's a whole nother thing, your emotions. And so a lot of this also alleviates the strain you put on your mind and body. So it's well worth taking the time to create these systems or routines, as I call them.
Absolutely. You are burning calories. Even if you think like, oh, I didn't even move much, that mental capacity. Think about that day when you've really got to think hard about something, really work on something, and you get done and you're like, whoa, I am worn out. That mental capacity is absolutely there. And, you know, we think about decision fatigue. You get to the end of the day and it's a whole lot harder to make those good choices. Well, when we build in some good routines that help simplify for us and make it easier to just not exert so much of that mental capacity, it's powerful. It does make a difference, and we feel better. We just like, look at me making these things happen. It feels good. Oh, I love this so much. Thank you so much for chatting with me today and for sharing your brilliance and your insights. So grateful to have you. There was so much goodness in this episode. I think one of my favorite takeaways was when Shantae said that you are born with all the points. This world does not make us feel like we're supposed to be having all the points already. We feel like, oh, once I get to this next level, then that's when I achieve the points. I was thinking about the game of life and that, you know, you acquire more, you get more points as you acquire more. But what if that's all wrong? What if we were born with all the points and your value is because you are here, not what we do? That comes with growth, and that's beautiful. And I love working to become more, but I already have all the points. I just loved that. I'm going to share that one with my kiddos too. So if you loved this episode, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review. It means the world. If you loved this episode, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review. My name is Leah Remillet. This is the Balancing Busy podcast. I will see you on the next episode. But until then, remember, you are capable. This is possible. It's your time.